What's some basic knowledge that a scary amount of people don't know? Antibiotics do not work on a virus. Edit. I did not expect this to blow up this much. Thank you so much for the awards and the shared information. Oh Jesus, this. All these idiots demanding antibiotics for the most minor sniffle, and the spineless doctors prescribing them, are literally creating superbugs, making everything worse for everyone. Antibiotic resistance is real, peeps. Edit. For the folks who keeping saying but if viruses aren't affected by antibiotics, then how can this possibly create superbugs? Simple, it's not the viruses, they aren't affected by antibiotics. It's the bacteria that we naturally have in our bodies that actually acquires the resistance first. When we have natural antibiotic-resistant bacteria in our body, bad bacteria is able to acquire this same resistance from our natural bacteria, thus creating superbugs. The point is still the same though, unnecessarily taking antibiotics for viruses triggers the process that leads to superbug creation via antibiotic resistance. You'd love my mother-in-law. She gets them for a cold, takes half a pack and then saves the rest for later, even offers them out to us when we're sick. We don't take them OFC. She has a whole lunchbox of old random antibiotics up in her cupboard. I've tried to tell her multiple times she's doing it wrong, but WTF would I know? I only worked in pharmacy for 6 years. Edit. I didn't think this would get so much attention. I throw out dangerous expired meds. I don't want her to die. This was years ago. She has gotten better. Probably sick of my nagging. 17 years later. So she just refuses to follow the instructions clearly written on each antibiotic prescribed. The ones that say, do not stop taking these until pills are complete, even if you start feeling better. Yep, pretty much. She's the old school type that's always said you get worse when you see a doctor, and I just roll my eyes because obviously it's because she doesn't listen. I love her to death, but she's hard work in that regard. Fit as a horse and will probably outlive the sun out of sheer stubbornness. This, as a previous pharmacy tech and now a receptionist at a pediatrics office, it infuriates me when parents insist on the doctors prescribing antibiotics for literally anything. They think it's a catch-all or something. I'm a pharmacist and I had to take my son to his pediatrician for some nonspecific symptoms, and she described him as viral and then proceeded to tell me she was prescribing a 10-day course of ceftonir. I asked if she thought he had a bacterial infection as well and she said no. I asked why he needed the antibiotic then and she said most parents demand it. I said I was a pharmacist and that didn't make a whole lot of sense. She looked super embarrassed and mumbled that she was canceling the prescription. She was super rude the rest of the visit. I thought she would be happy that a parent had some good sense about it for once. It's an uncomfortable idea that this family practitioner is out there not even attempting to educate their clients but also willing to cause harm so carelessly. Is that the normal? A guest requested their chicken to be cooked medium rare this week. I don't understand why I have to stress that chicken only leaves the kitchen when it's completely cooked. The salmonella just makes it more tasty. A colleague tried raw chicken hearts on vacation. Some local thing, was violently ill. Like they always say, best time to enjoy dangerous food is in a foreign country. Tax brackets. You only pay the higher rate on the portion above the threshold amount. Edit. Great example video here. This drives me fucking crazy. I work in manufacturing and make enough that we're right below the threshold for the next tax bracket. So many of my coworkers refuse to take overtime only because they think they'll actually make less money on their paycheck than if they didn't. This mentality is so prevalent even a reply to your comment misrepresents how taxes work. Only the portion of income above the bracket is taxed at a higher rate. It's always better to make more. You never take home less standard income because you made too much money or however these people think income tax works in fairytale land. Edit. A lot of people are commenting about welfare, which is not relevant to my comment about how income tax works. This is true for tax rates. They were designed that way. There are occasional edge cases where earning more could make you ineligible for other assistance programs though, mostly where they don't have graduated thresholds. So earning an extra $10 a week could mean you lose out on $50 WK of utility credits or something. How to tell if food has gone bad? When I worked in a meat department, we got like one call a day from people saying I bought this X days ago, is it still good, lady? I'm not there with you. This ain't a smeller phone. You're going to have to use your own senses and brain on this one. My mom will always use meat before the date on the package and refuse to use meat even one day after. It's infuriating. I've had too many conversations that go, man, this bacon doesn't taste right. Yeah, I know, it smelled funky in the package, too. Then why did you cook it? It doesn't expire until tomorrow. It's been an uphill battle for years now trying to explain to people that the dates on food are at best guidelines but in reality basically just arbitrary. Edit, and as if on cue someone of course pops in to let me know I'm wrong and that consuming food even a day past the expiration will make you sick. Even goes so far as to let us all know day-old water will kill you too. Edit 2, since it keeps getting repeated that best by or used by somehow mean different things, I'll drop in this snippet directly from the USDA website to remind everyone that both are in no way regulated or even federally mandated. Except for infant formula, dates are not an indicator of the product's safety and are not required by federal law. My brother-in-law is a chemist that uses to deal with best by dates. Based on what he told me, the dates aren't arbitrary but they don't all mean the same thing. Some food just goes bad and isn't safe to eat. Other foods discolors or the taste changes, but is still safe to eat. And yet others that advertise certain things like high vitamin C, well the vitamin C deteriorates over time so after a while it might only have half the advertised amount. Most best by dates are fairly conservative as well, as long as food is stored properly. Just because it's natural doesn't mean it is automatically healthy. Just because it is artificial or synthetic doesn't mean it is automatically bad for you. Had my GF tell me yesterday that carbonated water was bad for you because it has too many chemicals in it, I almost screamed back it has two, and one of them is the water. 100% of people who have drank water eventually died. Water is the most addictive substance known to man. Just try to wean yourself off of that shit and see what happens. H2O withdrawal is a motherfucker. Overdosing on Tylenol, acetaminophen, paracetamol, in large enough doses will prove fatal. The death is slow, painful and cruel, and there is nothing that can be done about it save for a liver transplant, which, good luck with that. Edit, several commenters have correctly pointed out that if treated quickly enough, there is an antidote for this poisoning and there can be a full recovery. When I wrote nothing can be done, I was referring to the point in time when end-stage liver damage and failure have occurred. Edit 2, many commenters now querying what constitutes a large enough dose, with the caveat that mileage may vary with age, other medications, alcohol, existing liver damage. 12 grams of Tylenol as a single dose, or 24x 500 milligrams tablets if you prefer, left without medical attention, is potentially fatal. Effects are cumulative so frequent, smaller overdoses over a longer TME frame will give the same end-stage liver disease and damage. For a medication that is widely recognized as well-tolerated and therefore safe, it sorta kinda ain't that. A friend who was working in the ER had to tell a patient that the fistful of Tylenol that they took as a sort of way to guilt their recent ex by sending pics was not in fact harmless and that they didn't just have a bad stomachache or appendicitis and that they weren't going to survive due to waiting so long to seek help and they needed to get their family there ASAP. A coworker from a long time back had a boyfriend who texted her that he swallowed a bottle of Tylenol pills after they broke up. He was just faking, trying to guilt her, but she called 911 right away instead of rushing over like he wanted, and the paramedics and a cop showed up at his apartment. He was mad, but I gave her a high five. Chronic overdosers also don't often realize each time accumulates harm, and particularly if they're taking behavioral overdoses, i.e. trying to commit suicide but not actually expecting to die, just receive treatment associated with the extremity of the act, that eventually one day, even if they don't realize nor intend it, that one next overdose may very well be their last from the chronic damage. Source, worked in psychiatry, lost a few of our patients like this, still remember most of their names and faces. My ex did this a lot in her relationship after me. She'd take a bunch of Tylenol around the time her new boyfriend would be coming home from work about once a month, waiting for him to find her and have to save her. He was delayed one day, and she died. It was awful. I honestly chalk it up more to depression though. It's the mental illness that caused the fatal behavior. I'm a nurse and cared for an 18-year-old patient that overdosed on Tylenol. She was seeing two different boys, and it was an attempt to see which boy cared about her the most who would come to the hospital to visit her. She went into severe liver failure. It took her about 5 weeks to die a slow and painful death. Neither of the boys came to visit her in the hospital. So dumb and so tragic. People are unaware of how dangerous Tylenol is. If it were a new drug today, no way it'd hit the market as an OTC med. Don't dive in the water to save a drowning person. They will kill you. Throw them a flotation device. Hand them a broomstick and pull them to safety. Do not get in the water with a panicking person. Wait until they are unconscious and then dive in to retrieve them. Source: years of swim lessons and unfortunately knowing somebody who has died trying to rescue somebody. My dog, who swims just fine, damn near drowned me in water that I could stand in and keep my head above. He must have brushed up against a plant or something and just started to panic, and just like a drowning human would do, started grabbing at me trying to hold on, which was of course, pushing me under for a minute there. Thankfully, he's only 50 pounds, so I just got away from him, turned around, and picked him up. I can't swim anyway, so you all will not be catching me trying to save a drowning human. Don't bother wild animals. I'm sure it's just natural selection at this point, but the amount of stupid people I see walking up to wild creatures for video footage is irritating tbh. Bonus points if the human gets hurt, haha. With the corollary of wild animals are not good pets. Not just things like lions and tigers, as made infamous by bad reality TV as well as Sigmund and Roy, but there are several other exotic animals that just do not make good pets. I have a friend who kind of stumbled into rescuing sugar gliders from people who thought they were cute and were woefully unprepared to care for them. They required enormous amounts of effort, fresh organic food in specific quantities, a huge variety in their diet, everything from fruit to almonds to mealworms in balanced quantities. They are truly nocturnal, which means they don't like being bothered during the day, they don't particularly like being touched or handled, and they literally scream at night. As an added bonus, vets don't really have a lot of experience with them, so if and when something happens, the vet is just as likely to be as confused as you are if they're even willing to see you in the first place. And yet people get scammed into thinking they are a cute equivalent to hamsters or something. As someone who rescues animals, it's often appalling how little effort people put into caring for their pets in general, how little they understand the needs of the animal, but owning exotics is like the epitome of ignoring reality.